the major tip I'm going to give you today is called the Pomodoro Technique. So I brought my own Pomodoro timer. Pomodoro is just Italian for tomato. So the guy that developed this technique, he used a tomato timer from the kitchen. So that's why it's called the Pomodoro Technique. And this is besides the techniques we talked about last week with spaced repetition and retrieval practice, this is the number 3 major thing that I ask students to do. So the Pomodoro Technique, it has been shown in the literature to help you to learn 3 to 4 times faster. And the reason for that, so simply put, you set a timer to 25 minutes. And just so you know, 25 minutes is not a magic number. The research generally kind of does put it in that area, but I think that's pretty subjective. When you're first starting to do something like this, maybe you can only, how long can you focus intently on something before your brain is just, it can't keep up? Might be 15 minutes, might be 30 minutes. I know people that do really long sessions, so maybe 55 minutes before they take a break. I think it changes day to day. If you slept really poorly last night, you got other things on your mind, then this number should be smaller. But I think starting with 25 minutes is a fine thing. So the Pomodoro Technique says for 25 minutes, you focus on one thing. No distractions. If you have to leave your phone in the other room, if you have to turn off the Wi-Fi, you're going to focus for 25 minutes. Hard for your brain to focus, but you can convince your brain, okay, we can do this, we got this, we can focus for 25 minutes. But the key with the Pomodoro Technique is not the 25 minutes of focus, it is the reward. So then there's going to be a 5-minute break, and during that break you're going to do something rewarding. So we'll come back to that, but I say turn yourself into Pavlov's dog, and the reason I do that is because, that dog did what it needed to do to get that treat, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So, oh goody, I get to study. Right? Because when I'm done with this 25 minutes of focus, I get that reward. So that the key really is the reward. It is not optional. This is not a technique to just teach you how to focus. It's a technique to bring your brain along for the ride because it's going to get that reward, and it starts to meld those two things together. It sees those study sessions as a positive instead of a painful negative. When you're first getting started, I don't know if you ever tried to meditate. We talked about that last week. I personally, focusing on one thing is my form of meditation. When I try to empty my mind, it doesn't work. My to-do list pops into it. So I don't like to meditate, but I like to focus on things. And that's why I like the Pomodoro Technique so much. But the victory is in the effort. If you can't do a 25-minute session the first time you try this, if you start getting distracted, what do? You're aware of the fact you're distracted. Get back to it. Take a breath. Focus again. So if you're going to get pulled away, I've tried meditation where I just stared at a flame for half an hour. 100 times I was distracted and had to suck myself back in to trying to meditate. And that's going to happen here too. So be proud of yourself for trying this and getting better every time. Every time you notice you're being distracted, don't give up. Just, okay, I'm distracted. I got to focus back in, and I got to focus until that timer goes off. Start small. I think, one Pomodoro session, you can try 25 minutes, but if you have to start with 5 or 10 minutes, depending on the task, that's perfectly fine too. So start small. What I mean here by 90-minute victories versus 120-minute defeats, if you sit down and say, you know what, I'm going to do 6 of these, I'm going to power through 3 hours, and I'm going to get an unbelievable amount of work done. If you say that, and you only make it for 2 hours, and you're toast, you just study for 2 hours and see that as a failure. If I say I'm only going to do 1 or 2 Pomodoro sessions and I end up doing 3, that's a victory, right? So we have to be very careful that we don't convince ourselves we can do more than we can do. So I like to set my goals pretty low and blast past them rather than set them so high that I'm never going to attain them. Because if you do that, your brain says, that's not going to happen. I am not on board with this, so I'm going to distract you. And I'm going to remind you that there's a donut in the refrigerator, or I don't know where you keep donuts, wherever you keep donuts. So cleanse your palate of something. Now this is kind of this is something that's very important to me, so I kind of want to pause and talk about this. Whether you do the Pomodoro or not, when you sit to do something, when a student comes to class and they talk about having to come to class, I always remind them that you get to come to class. And what I mean by cleansing your palate is the idea that there are people that would literally have died to get the kind of education for their children that we can get here, right? It is an honor to get to learn, to get to go to school, to get to have a better life. And there are people that would literally kill to be in your position as a student. So, and not just that. So when most of my students are heading down health sciences paths, pre-chiropractic or nursing, whatever. Do you know what you're working on? I know you don't care about the Krebs cycle, but it's part of this bigger plan where you get to become a nurse, a doctor, or something, and you get to help people. You get to help people that are sick and dying. You get to bring dignity to people that need your help for the rest of your life. So you're here because you want a career that makes a difference. And every time you sit down and study, it's part of that. So whether you pray, whether you have a gratitude journal, I don't care what it is. But when you sit down to learn something, you need to respect the fact that it's a blessing. It's a very positive thing, and people would love to be in your situation. So that's what I mean by kind of cleansing your palate. I don't want students coming into studying like dreading studying. If you come to class and you don't want to be there, I'd really rather you're not there. Like so to be completely honest. So I want to get students in the right mindset. So prior to studying, prior to coming to class, like just remember that this is an unbelievable privilege that you get to, because again, most of my students are in the health sciences, that you get to care for the sick and give dignity to the dying for the rest of your life. And this is a part of that process. So because I think mindset is so important. We talked last week about fixed versus growth mindset. Like if you look at failures as some inherent weakness in you and that causes you to stop, then you're never going to be successful. If you look at failures as an opportunity to learn and get better, then you are going to succeed. So same thing here. The emotional state that you're in when you're learning, very important. And truly, I don't want to get into the neuroscience behind it, but it actually influences where information is stored. If you're studying out of fear, or you're angry, these types of things, then the parts of the brain that light up when you learn are the limbic system that stores negative things, right? You're now associating learning with this negative thing, but it actually changed the part of the brain that's involved. When you're learning things you want to learn, things you love, things you're passionate about, a different part of your brain, the hippocampus, is primarily going to light up, and that's going to be a much better thing, much better, positive experience. So whether you think that's a little bit woo-woo or not, I really think your mindset is very important. And I think right before you sit down to study, right before you try one of these things, I think that's the perfect time to cleanse that palate. Don't think about all the negatives. Don't think about anything else. Like just remember the pure joy of being a human that has a brain that can learn things. And to me, that's super easy because, especially in the sciences, like I mean, that's my bias, but us and the world around us are so unbelievably amazing. Like students are shocked that I haven't read Harry Potter and these kind of things. I'm like, do you know how awesome the real world is? Like I don't need fiction. Like the things that I learn and the things that I teach are mind-blowing as it is. So I do look at it as a privilege to continue to learn so I can share the information with my students. All right, the power is truly in that break, because just hammering in and focusing for 25 minutes is the equivalent of saying I can do this. I can stay on this diet even though there are things around that are calling to me. So you have to be able to reward yourself, and it has to be something you anticipate. So a lot of students use things like candy and stuff like that. I think over the short term that might be okay, but again, if you can find something that rewards you, that feels good, that you enjoy, that's also positive. Like I don't want you to get diabetes because of the study techniques that I'm giving you, and it's certainly not going to help your brain anyways. So I cannot tell you what to do to reward yourself, but the big rule is use a different part of your brain. If you just spent 25 minutes writing something, the last thing you should do is go write a long post on Facebook or something else. Use different parts of your brain, or maybe preferably no parts at all. And when I say that, I mean like your conscious mind. So the perfect reward for me is going to be walking. Walking's good for your brain, good for your body. It actually allows your subconscious mind to think about and wrestle with what you just spent 25 minutes focusing on. So a 5-minute walk, maybe walk and get water. Like we're out. We even joke about how much we see each other in the halls because walking to get water. So walking and hydrating yourself are two extremely positive things you can see as rewarding with this Pomodoro technique. So I'm going to work like mad for 25 minutes, and I'm going to go take a nice 5-minute walk outside if you can. So there's something about being outside, obviously, the sun and everything else. But if you can walk outside, that's a phenomenal reward. These aren't the only rewards that'll work, but those are the ones that I find work best for me. A few more rules. So 25 minutes is not magic. If it's something like with reading, there are books I can read in a day, and there are books that I can read no more than 3 pages at a time because it's so deep, right? So if you're studying things that are really, really difficult, then maybe you should start with less than 25 minutes. If it's something that's a lot easier for you, maybe you can go longer than 25 minutes. If you got in a fight with your significant other and slept 4 hours last night, it should probably be a smaller number. If you're feeling great, it should be a larger number. And you can pile Pomodoros on top of each other. So 25 minutes, take your walk, do another one. So should you stop though? There are some people that would argue that you shouldn't. There's this idea of flow. Like if time has basically disappeared because you're working so intently and you're so focused that you're almost in another world, then I probably wouldn't interrupt that. You know, if you're super creative, you know the timer goes off and you're like, no, I'm cruising, then do it. But if you see any signs that you're getting tired or getting bored or these kinds of things, then you need to take that break. So I mentioned last week that the Charlotte Mason method is an educational method I'm a real big fan of in the homeschooling community. So what I would say, so the Charlotte Mason method, you actually do, every 20 minutes you switch subjects. Now that might be too small of a number, but what I like about the Charlotte Mason method is they actually want you to stop a little too early rather than a little too late. So like even if you're like still excited about the topic, it's better to kind of leave your appetite a little wet and come back to it excited than go too long. So I'd say stopping 5 minutes too early is definitely better than stopping 5 minutes too late. Like, oh my God, I can't wait for this timer to go off because I hate this. You don't want that. So maybe it's a mindset thing again, but I would definitely recommend stopping too early rather than too late. And that's going to take just some playing with you to figure out how this works. But all right, so that's the Pomodoro technique, which to me is the #1 cure for distraction. So the #1 cure for procrastination is to set appropriate goals, hold yourself accountable, all these kind of things. The #1 cure for distraction is this Pomodoro technique. And you don't need a Pomodoro, a little hint, mine's actually broken, so it doesn't work anymore. I just brought it because it's tomato. I don't use it. I use one on my phone.